Hey everyone, this is AJ with Blackhawk Bushcraft. Hope everybody's having a good evening. And I'm just getting out of my cold plunge and sitting here just allowing my body to warm up and just had some thoughts of some things that I wanted to share. By the way, if you haven't cold plunged before or haven't heard of a gentleman by the name of Wim Hof, highly encourage you to check him out. Usually do a cold plunge in about 46 to 48 degrees and do it for about 6 minutes. And I've been doing it for now 14 months and it's been absolutely wonderful. And that's what I really like about going into the late fall and especially the winter season is the water just always comes out of the tap, usually between 46 to 48 degrees. So I don't need to artificially cool the water to do the cold plunge. But now I'm just sitting here on my couch in my basement. Was getting ready to turn on a movie just to unwind for the evening. And, just wanted to talk just about survival and survivability concept and, just a disappointment. And I don't know if you feel the same way as I do, but it's becoming increasingly disappointing to see a lot of people out there with fairly successful channels that just really have a tendency to come across as the know-it-alls of everything and anything in a way that I just feel really, is a disservice to those of us in the survival community, those of us that, try to be a family, and what do I know? I'm just a small channel. But I do this mostly as a hobby to take something that I enjoy doing in hopes of helping spark some interest in the lives of other people so that they might feel inclined to get into bushcraft and survival and increase their skill set and knowledge in that. But I think that there comes a point where when an individual starts coming across as an arrogant know-it-all, that's a problem. I don't know that you can ever get to a point that you think that your way of doing something is the only correct way of doing something. And quite frankly, I think arrogance and having that mentality not only is a disservice to individuals around you that you're trying to add value to their lives, but I think it's a disservice to yourself. I mean, at what point does a teacher ever get to the point that they've learned everything and need to stop learning? I mean, a teacher is as much of a student as they are a teacher. It's just to what degree you're still learning and how you're still increasing your skill set. So, for anybody that is pushing a propaganda or their channel or themselves or their survival school or whatever it is they're doing, that they are the walking epitome of knowing everything about survival and that there's nothing else that you can teach them and that they know everything and that the way that they do things is the only correct way to do it. And they talk down and almost mudsling like, a bloodthirsty politician against other people out there, big channels and small channels, and the way that they may choose to do something, when in reality, it's not that their way or the other person's way is the right way. It's that there's multiple ways of doing something just based on preference, based on how you've been trained. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, for example, me, if I put out a video and have an opinion on something, it doesn't necessarily mean that my opinion is the only right opinion related to something. An example of this is, you'll have some people that are so quick to criticize other individuals over things like knife preference. Like, you should only have a carbon steel blade, and you should never use a stainless steel blade, or you shouldn't do this, or your knife should only be full tang, or it should be this or that, which, great, if that's your opinion. But if somebody is acclimated or prefers something like a stainless steel or a semi-stainless steel, or something like a Mora, which many of the exceptional Mora blades out there are not full tang, or maybe it's many of the Norwegian or Scandinavian, traditional Scandinavian blades that have been used by civilizations for generations that are not full tang blades. Just because somebody does something differently does not mean that it gives you, who feels very passionately about something, the right to tell somebody that the way that they're doing something is wrong. Maybe except for go ahead and take a jump off that cliff and flap your arms as fast as you can and see how well you can fly. Okay, I think that there's a point where, if it's completely something that's ridiculous, yeah, you might want to tell somebody, hey, there's a better way of doing this. But I'm a firm believer it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So if you feel very passionately about a full tang blade, for example, and that it needs to be a 1/4 inch thick, and it should only be 1095, or whatever the reasons are for your knife preferences, then just share your knowledge. Give people something to think about, and it should really end there. If somebody doesn't feel like they need to carry a carbon steel blade because of the need to perhaps strike sparks off the spine, that's okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because quite frankly, for all of us here in this survival community family, 99.9999999% of the time, any situation that we have, which is a survival situation, is of our own making. Because we're going out and we're training and we're trying to increase our skill set, and we're trying to, absorb new ways of doing things, or just practicing new ways of doing things, or letting the wheels in our head spin so that we, think of, hey, I'm going to go out and try this, or maybe I can just get by with this, or what if this scenario, or what if that scenario. It's all hypotheticals. Very, 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 very unlikely that the scenarios that we put ourselves in of our own making will ever be a reality. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Like, if somebody feels that, for example, in the case of a carbon steel blade, that they need to carry that, to have that, comfort blanket of being able to throw sparks off their spine, then that's great. Or if somebody feels that they only need to use a ferro rod, because I'll only ever use a ferro rod because I don't believe in carrying a Bic lighter because of this reason or that reason, okay, if that's your preference, then great. But maybe there's others out there in the survival community, based on their training and based on the ways that they like doing things, maybe they prefer using a Bic lighter as their first and foremost way of starting a fire. Maybe it's not always going to be a friction fire. Maybe it's not always going to be a ferro rod. So the point that I'm getting at is, for all of us here in the survival community and the way that we do things, we should be adding value to people's lives in increasing the brotherhood that we feel among those that share this commonality with bushcraft and survival and self-sufficiency and being able to do more with less, or whatever it is. I just don't think that there is ever a place for degrading individuals because of how they do something, or telling somebody that the way that they do something's wrong just because the way that you do it might be a little bit different. Or heaven forbid, if somebody wants to carry a hank of paracord versus, a spool of 36 bank line, why talk down on somebody and tell somebody that their choice of cordage is incorrect because you might choose to do something differently? I don't think that adds any value. And quite frankly, for any survival instructor out there, I guess self-proclaimed survival instructor out there, that comes across from a position of arrogance versus confidence, and those two things are very different. You can be very confident, which is a positive thing, not only in your own life, but the lives of other individuals that you're trying to influence for good purposes. Or you can come across it as a position of arrogance, which is not a good thing. It's completely negative. It not only does harm to yourself, but it does harm to the individuals in the way that you feel like you have to cut somebody down to make yourself look better. And I really feel like anybody that comes across as a teacher, or from a position of a teacher, and somebody that's wanting to influence somebody, should always be from a position of lifting them to a higher level, not cutting that individual down to make yourself look good. And I found most often in my own life with interactions with overly arrogant people, they're trying to compensate for insecurities. And so I would go as far to say that, anybody that's out there trying to teach somebody any type of skill that comes across from a position of arrogance to degrade everybody, like I said, like a politician, vote for me, don't vote for this person because of the way that they do this, that, or the other. Arrogance isn't something that we need in the survival community. It doesn't offer anybody any benefit, whether you're a big channel, whether you run a survival school, whether you're a small channel, whether you're somebody that doesn't even have a channel. It should always be, the way that we should approach it should always be from the position that we don't know everything, that there's always something else to learn. Hopefully looking at those outside of the community and trying to offer something of value to them so that they might feel more inclined to do this. And if they don't, that's okay too. Survival, bushcraft, prepping, self-sufficiency, living off the land, learning how to get by, in an urban setting or a forested setting or a desert setting or whatever it is, any type of emergency or survival setting. That's just not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay too. I think that there's just room to be more civil. There's enough in this crazy world that causes everybody to want to feel divided over everything. And I just think that in the survival and bushcraft family and brotherhood that we have among those of us that try to share something through YouTube or other social media platforms, that we don't need to stoop to that level. We don't need to cut ourselves down and cut other people's down for the sake of trying to make ourselves look larger than life. And for what purpose? To sell more gear, to get more people to enroll in our classes. What purpose? I mean, why come across as a arrogant butthole from the sake of nitpicking and telling other people that the way that they do things is the wrong way of doing things because you want to be a self-proclaimed survival instructor and make yourself look larger than life? Quite frankly, I don't know that I could ever trust any teacher that came across of a position of arrogance like that, because they've obviously got to the point where they feel like they no longer can learn anything and that they are a walking encyclopedia of knowing how to do everything. And that's just not the case. The best teachers will always be the most humble teachers. Those individuals that are very confident in the way that they do things, but also understand that maybe there's a better way of doing something that they haven't thought about before. The best teachers are always looking to increase their own skill sets and never assume a position of how do I say this? They never assume a position of exceeding the position of a student. The best teachers are always the best students, and the best leaders are always the best followers. That's just my opinion. So for what it's worth, this is a 15-minute rant on maybe something that other people will just kind of laugh off. Maybe it just doesn't even matter. But you see a lot of stuff out there in YouTube, and the brotherhood that you feel, for those of you that have served in the armed forces, you can understand that brotherhood, people that you would give your life for, and then others that you probably would feel inclined not to ever take a bullet for, just because of the way that they treat people and the way that they promote themselves above the greater good. And I really feel that that's what the bushcraft and survival community should be, is a tight-knit family a group of people that are trying to accomplish a unified purpose of teaching and promoting good and helping people develop skills and sharing our knowledge, but also remaining in a position of learning and never cutting people down, degrading other people's way of doing things, cutting people's channels down, or promoting ourselves as larger than life because we have this many followers. That's not what it should be about. So that's my, now I guess it's going to probably be about a 17-minute rant this evening, but thank you so much for all that you do, for comments, for your support of the channel, for just taking the time to listen to this rant, and just hopefully maybe something that I've said has provided some value to you and maybe something to think about. Feel free to add your comments and tell me what you think about this topic. You know, do you ever get to a point that you know everything? Do you feel that you should remain more of a humble teacher versus an arrogant know-it-all? Do you feel that that causes more harm than good? Do you think that I may be overthinking this? But anyways, for what it's worth, thank you so much. Have a great evening, and God bless. Take care.